All right, good morning, everybody. Good Saturday morning. It is Saturday, October 30th, 2021. Hope everybody's having a good weekend, good start to their weekend. It looks like I'll be solo today, so I don't know how long I'll go. Probably, definitely not 2 hours. I don't think you guys want me to just sit up here and talk for 2 hours straight. It'd be pretty boring. So I'm going to drop the link here real quick, and then anybody who wants to join me can. And I'd like to know what you guys would like to talk about today. So go ahead, put it in the chat. I'll take a look at it, and we can start the conversation this Saturday for what you guys want to talk about. If you guys want to talk about a certain kind of fishing, a certain kind of hunting, maybe metal detecting, or my brother and I like to prospect for gold. I'm not much of the prospector. He likes to prospect. I like the production part of gold. I like engineering the wash plant and stuff, and then my brother is the builder. Well, I'm the builder too, but he really enjoys building, um, and so that's something that we like to do together. Besides hunting, so we can talk about stuff like that. We can talk about recent hikes that you guys have been on or camping trips. It's really this show is about the great outdoors, so we can talk about any of that stuff. You notice my new background. So brother Alan, he Alan is just as amazing as anyone else in LWN, and so I told him, hey Hawkeye, I told him, man, this the billboard in the background's got to go. That's cool for the big show, but when we're doing the outdoor show, I want it to feel more like I'm in the outdoors. So if you look at the creek in the background, you'll even see it moving too. There's leaves and stuff floating down the creek, which is pretty cool. So thank you, Alan, for your hard work. He helped me last night after the show was over getting this into my software, and I've got other ones too that he put in there that I'll be sharing with you guys throughout the weeks. But at least I feel relaxed. I feel like I'm kind of still in the woods, even though I'm not. So that's pretty amazing. Let's see. You guys have any topics you want to talk about this morning? Hmm. I see a comment in there asking about Hawk. I have no idea. I have no idea where he's at yet on his donations, but I do know that we did help out a little bit last night. How much I don't know, but every little bit helps, and I'm glad I'm glad Hawk was able to join me last night so that we could help him. Good morning, Sue. Good morning, Tracy Q, our neck of the woods. Catherine, Hawkeye, Betty. Um, so you guys have anything you want to talk about this morning? Throw it up here. No, these guys are going to blow my Facebook up this morning. I can already tell. Let me cancel out of that because I can't stand that little beep. Here's the link. Anybody wants to join me this morning? Like I said, it's just a pretty chill morning. Um, just kind of relaxing. It's been a fast paced week for me, and I got some plans for later this afternoon. Just wanting to know. Oh, you're welcome there. Hawk is part of the family. You're all part of the family. So just got to do what we can to help a gentleman that had things out of his control. Mother Nature really did a number on him last weekend. So anything that we can do to help him out, that's great. You guys don't have anything that you guys want to talk about this morning. Not even Heather. Heather's always got something. Heather's always got something. Good morning, Bonnie. All right, we got Hawkeye here with us. How you doing this morning, brother?
I'm good, bro. How are you?
I'm doing all right. What's on your mind this morning? What have you been up to? Last time we talked, I think it was last weekend. You had to work. You were at the restaurant. You showed us some pretty cool stuff down in the basement. You showed us You showed us where you target practice when you were shooting competitively. Anything else been going on since then? Have you shot anything?
I have not shot anything. We have opening day of pheasant is today, and unfortunately, I've got to go in and do some more work at the restaurant, so I'm kind of stuck there. I'm getting ready for winter, so I plow our snow. I not only am I a restaurateur, but I used to be a mechanical draftsman for three-dimensional design.
Yeah.
So here's a design I just did on my. I've got 5 3D printers, and this holds I don't know if you're familiar with snow plowing, but you have a little joystick, and it fits into a little slot. Well, on the new trucks, nobody wants to put a hole in their dash to mount that little bracket. Okay. So this fits in your little 12-volt adapter, and then the bracket fits right to this. So you don't have to. So, and then all my reloading stuff, I've designed all that and print that. So I was given a Matthews bow. A friend of mine dry fired his bow years ago. He was kind of wanting to get into archery, but never did. And so he dry fired his bow probably 10 years ago, maybe less. And it blew all the cables off of it. So he brought it over the other day, and he says, I'm not wanting to shoot anymore. Do you want this bow? So I got a brand new Ignite. It's a Hoyt. It's a Hoyt Ignite. So I'm going to be doing a video. Of so nice bow.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be doing a video on my channel about going to be making cables and bowstrings for it. So
nice. That ought to be pretty interesting. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, if you get on my channel, I found a video that I made almost 10 years ago, and it's on my channel right now, and it's on that bowstring jig that I designed. But as far as getting out in the woods, I've been so busy at the restaurant since last week. I got my ceiling fixed. And then today I got to go in and do some electrical. I've got a heater.
Be careful. Be careful.
Yeah. I'm good, man. I'm good with electrical. So I got to go in and put in a new toggle switch on one of the heaters, and it's a double pole, double throw. So it's a little tight to get everything put back together, but I see a lot of guys. I see a lot of guys posting pictures in my area.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them here in my little town. I see the horns coming out of the bed of their truck. And yesterday was Friday. Good morning, Heather. Welcome to the show. Yesterday was Friday, and I was trying to find a hot springs yesterday. So I took Noah and we went up to where the trailhead was and hiked up in there and had a good time. Didn't find it, so I'm gonna have to get more information. But it was nice to get out from in front of this computer screen, out of the house and out in the woods. And it was actually pretty nice to take my son on a hike. And he kept talking about hunting. Dad, we should be hunting right now. And there were some hunters up the draw ways from us. He couldn't see him, but I saw him, and I said, "There's a hunter over there." And he's like, "Where?" And I said, "He's in camo. You can't see him unless you're really paying attention." But just being in the outdoors and the dog with us, it was a fun afternoon. So I enjoyed the hike.
I'm I'm ready to throw this thing away. I'm ready. I'm ready for this thing to go to the wayside.
It's a ball and chain. It's a ball and chain.
Oh my God.
So, what's on your mind this morning, Heather?
Well, Mike, I came up because I love you, man. And, I always try to help you out. So, with everything that's happened with Hawk, maybe you want to talk a little bit about like things that we do right after a natural disaster so people get more prepared of a mindset, to handle those situations. Because sometimes it's worse. Like we just went through this with our brother Craig with the hurricane, and now Hawk just had that terrible weather. And, those are things we probably need to talk a little bit about so that we have a mindset, because I think there's probably going to come a day when we're not going to be able to like monetarily help each other out in those manners. But like, how Hawk's community came together to help him out. Right.
Absolutely.
So always that community level, but there's also things like, all right, take inventories of what you have, of what you need. Keep in mind your first three things, is going to be shelter, water, food, right? Heat after that, things like that. That's all. I was just trying to be helpful.
Trying to give us something to talk about, huh?
Well, have a pretty creative mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'd love to see people, I've been pretty fortunate through my life. I've worked my ass off, and my gaining knowledge to me is paramount. So if I had a job to do and I couldn't do it because of let's say welding, I needed some welding done, but I couldn't do it because I didn't have the tools. I would estimate the price through a professional, and then he'd give me a price of $1,000, and I'd say, well, you know what? I'm real good with my hands. I'll bet you I could teach myself to weld. So I'd take that $1,000 and I'd go buy a welder, teach myself how to weld, and then do the job. So now, I've been welding for 30 years. I got a TIG welder. I can weld stainless. I can weld aluminum, and, same way with you, Mike. I mean, with electrical, if I needed some electrical done, I've got electrical engineers in the family. So I just taught myself the principles of electronics and then do the job myself. I think people need to figure out, I think people need the knowledge. They don't need the fear, gain the knowledge, live 5 days without, tell yourself that you had a disaster, a fake disaster in your area, and live for 5 days. See if you can do it for 5 days. See what it takes. Do without your phone. Do without going to the store. See how your prepping set up.
I do that every day.
I do that.
The only thing I don't do is get away from this and to get away from the thing we're talking on right now. But yeah, I spend days without going to the store, and I just you said.
We had that derecho come through Iowa, and it was the costliest single storm in American history, and it in our area it damaged about a 60 mile radius, and it just flattened trees. It took down a half a dozen telephone poles in my area, and I had to live without power for 8 days. I had no furnace. I had no air conditioning. I had no, we had running water. That was about it. But I had to do it for 8 days, and it was nothing. If you're prepared, do it for 5 days and see how prepared you are.
And
You know, see
Hawkeye,
how
that's a
prepared you are.
great point. I would add to Hawkeye's point by saying practice rationing your food, making meals for your family on rationed foods, just to see how your family and you can deal with that. Because a lot of people have preps that they're not used to eating on a regular basis. A lot of people have stocked up on rice and beans, for instance, and either don't know how to cook them or don't know how to cook them in a multiple variety of ways so that their family will eat them in a time of need. So, like, those are really things that are important, because if you have kids in your household, you have to feed them babies, and you have to make sure that what you're feeding them has enough nutritional value for them. As adults, we can fast for several days really without any problem. I mean, most of us do that somewhat throughout the year, right? For whatever belief system that we live by. Most of us fast at least once a year, right? So,
Sure.
I mean, a lot of people do. A lot of people do. But I mean, as
Shalom.
adults, we can do that, right? Or we can go with a small one meal a day to keep energized, to keep our energy levels up.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about having a household with kids or a community with children, you have to not only have the preps, but also know how to prepare them so the children have food. They know how to eat, because we live in a day and age when we were growing up, it was you're going to eat that plate or you're going to bed hungry. And we don't live in that day and age now. Most households don't run like that now. They cook to their family, right? They cook to their likes, but they don't always prep to their likes. So that's kind of important.
Well,
Absolutely.
Heather, Heather, one of the and this goes with preparation, and then this goes back to hunting and fishing. How many times have you been out and there's times where you're not going to have electrical? Do you know how to go out and make a fire pit in your backyard? Do you know how to start a fire?
I cooked on a fire. I cooked on a campfire for 2 years straight for my family.
Absolutely.
Just so we were in the way of eating food that tasted like that. And I was in the knowledge of preparing food that tasted like that. And I did every meal on the campfire. My husband and I came up with a schedule of who stoked the fire when. And so by the end of that experiment, because we did it for 2 years, by the end of that experiment, we knew exactly how much wood we would need, how much time, even with like different weather conditions. And that's why we did it for so long. That's part of the reason, was so that we understood all the different things that could challenge that method of cooking. So even now, in the wintertime, I cook on our wood stove, even though it's not a wood cook stove. I can still use it to cook on. So we do that to preserve propane.
What happens when you prep and you've got all this set up in your location and then your house burns down as part of this, as part of whatever happens?
It goes right back to what you were saying about the skills.
Now you've got nothing. Can you start from nothing and survive? I mean, that's kind of what prepping is. And prepping isn't about having tons of goods on hand. Prepping is how are you prepping up here? How are you hunting up here? How are you fishing up here? It's all about your head. It's not about what's happening all around us. It's about what will happen.
How mentally prepared are you? You can have all the stocks in the world. If you don't know, if you're not mentally prepared to handle that situation, none of your preps are going to matter. You're absolutely right. And if your house burns down or all your preps get lost or there's an earthquake and all your glass jars are shattered and you don't have the skills to go out and forage for food, hunt for food, or fish for food, then you're right. And it is a mental state. And that's what I would say in there at the beginning. Right. We really have to be in a mindset, right, that no matter what befalls us, we are going to be okay. We have to have a skill set that's wide and varied so that no matter what happens, we will be okay. A community where everybody can kind of share skills is great. But what if you don't have that? If you don't have that, have skills, have knowledge, practice those skills, because reading a book only goes so far if you've gone outside and practiced it. We taught our daughter since she was very little about foraging. And actually, one of the first times I came up here with you, Mike, I talked about foraging, didn't I?
Yep.
Yep. Because it's important too that kids know what plants are edible and what plants aren't. And if you start them off with those skills at a young enough age, they'll be able to pick up on that. They'll know what's medicinal, what's edible, what's a good food stuff, what's not, and they'll know how to harvest that and utilize that through a long winter where there's no growing.
Well, that's why I'm so sad that organizations like the Boy Scouts just are getting slammed so much anymore, and they don't seem to be relevant. But 90% of what I learned was from my parents, grandparents, and being a scout. I mean,
yeah.
They taught you everything. If you wanted to learn, they taught you everything at a young age. And people, like building a fire. The best thing you can have, this thing will last. I've had this since 1981. A little Zippo lighter. Okay. You keep flints, and you get yourself a quart of lighter fluid, and this thing will last you till you die.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. A lot of people don't know how to make a fire. They don't know how to make a fire without extra tools. And I mean, you need fire for a lot of things.
For a lot of reasons. I want to make a couple of points here. One, and I won't dive into politics, but one thing, I get beat up on the other channel when I tell people you need to be prepared for anything, and they just say, "Well, Mike, that's just that's fear porn. You're just trying to scare people." I'm not trying to scare anybody. Look at what happened to Hawk. It was a lightning storm last weekend that took a good majority of his stuff out. So it's Mother Nature that we're fighting against constantly. So if you're not prepared up here, if you're not prepared at home, if you don't practice, it could be an ice storm. It could be a record snowfall one year. It could be a record drought. It could be any number of things that could really put you and your family at a disadvantage, put you in a position where you really got to think on your feet, think for yourselves. And to address what Hawk said about what happens if your house burns down and everything's inside. Great point. And I'm always thinking about stuff like that. And if I ever get my dream of my property on the mountain, one of the things that I want to do, Hawk, was I wanted to excavate and drop a 40-foot Conex in the ground and make that my food cell.
I'd love to have that.
Heck yeah.
That way, one, I don't need expensive fridges and stuff to store food. I'm able to store it in the ground where the ground temperature stays at a nice cool 55 degrees or so. And then that way, because where I want to live, there's always the danger of wildfires. So I've got to think if a wildfire comes through here, how am I going to protect me, my investments? How am I going to survive? It's the elements that we're fighting against, whether you're hunting, fishing, or like Trace, like Heather and Jeff, just kind of living off the land. You have all those things that you have to adjust for and think about.
Well, and it's kind of like canning. We have a lot of ways that we can preserve our food. We can smoke it. We can pickle it. We can can it. and people that are canning, they're talking about, well, this should last me 10 years. The whole idea behind canning is not lasting 10 years. The idea behind canning is it's going to get you through the winter. And then you're going to grow crops the next year, and then that's going to get you through the next year. And you can for a year. You can for a year. You might have leftovers that are on there for 2 years, but
and
that's
the
another whole point of it, is not to last 50 years.
Hawk, that's a really great point. And I was just going to say something about the preservation of food is another thing. Everybody knows how to do it with all the fancy gadgets and tech we have now. But if your house burns down in a wildfire, let's say, or an electric storm that takes out your power, are you going to be using a dehydrator? Or do you know how to preserve your meat without the use of an oven? Do you know how to preserve your vegetables, your herbs, there are multiple ways. And unless you have backup knowledge without the tech, are you going to be able to survive long term? Are you going to be able to put up that meat? So say Jeff goes out and he hits a large buck. Well, that's meat for almost a year for our family. So how do we preserve that meat in order to make it last? And in the event that we had to go do something like that, Jeff and I would just turn it into pemmican, because pemmican's got a long shelf life, doesn't need refrigeration, right? We're set up for that because we tend to think in those ways of, what can we do without using electricity? Because we set ourselves a challenge when we first moved out here, that we wanted to be as off-grid as we possibly could be.
Okay, so you talk about making pemmican. Pemmicans back in the 1800s, and why even go that far? My sister pickles meat and gives it to me all the time. Every year she pickles meat. I give her deer that I've done. She'll pickle all sorts of meat. She makes pickles out of cucumbers. She pickles a lot of her eggs. And I'll tell you what, there is nothing better. Oh my God. If you like sweet stuff, there is nothing better than pickled meat. I mean, it's just incredible.
I don't care for pickled meat myself. I prefer the pemmican. That's why I don't
love it.
But fermentation is an ancient way of preserving our vegetables and keeping our alive and keeping the nutrient value in them. So that was a really great point, Hawkeye.
Yeah. Can you explain to us? Can you just give us a description on what you're talking about, Heather? About the meat?
The pemmican? Yeah. Correct, okay. Yes. So Hawkeye had it right back in the 1800s, but even before that, the Native Americans traded pemmican with a lot of.
What is it? Can you describe
what it is? Dried. It is a slow dried meat. Any kind of lean meat, deer, buffalo, beef, any kind of a red lean meat. Right. You want to cut off as much of the fat as you can. And how the natives used to do it was they would build a rack of pools over top of a fire, probably about 4 feet above the flame, maybe sometimes higher. And they would lay the meat, they cut it real thin and lay these meat strips out across these poles and slow dry them. And then they would grind them up, melt lard or some other type of fat. They would render it. And then they would use the rendered fat and put it with the pemmican, with the meat. And that would make your pemmican because the meat keeps it shelf stable. The fat keeps it shelf stable. And it also adds nutritional value. Okay, so if you were to make pemmican, and the way we do it is we do it in muffin pans, right? So each block is about 2,000 calories. Now, you can take this like trail food, right? You can pop them in a little Ziploc baggie and carry them up the trail with you and eat it. It's not going to be real tasty. but it's gonna have a nice, strong, beefy flavor. Or like if you used suet instead, if you rendered suet instead, it would have like a porky flavor. So it's going to be the flavor of the fat. But then you can also take that little tiny brick and make an entire meal for your family with that one little brick, a wild potato and some greens or something. You know, that's where the foraging comes in. That's how you get your and Native Americans, a lot of times they would use dried berries and things in theirs as well. We don't. We like to just do the meat because it's shelf stable for a longer period of time without the berries in it.
Gotcha. So let me make a couple of comments here. I'm going to ask both of you guys a question, and then I want to talk about books too, real quick. So my comment about books: it's always been my belief, without the natural disaster of wildfire burning your house to the ground or a flood that would ruin them, books to me are so valuable. Because if you can collect the right books, you'll always have the knowledge that you can always go to read. But like you said, Heather, you can read all you want, but if you don't put it to practice, it's really not that great. I mean, you gotta practice what you read. But I just feel like books are invaluable, and I think people look over that because of the internet nowadays. Everything's on the internet. I can just go to the internet. Well, what if the internet is not there? What if the internet is not there at your fingertips? So if you go to your library and you could pull a book off the shelf that teaches you how to pickle meat or do the way that you do it, Heather, I think that's an invaluable resource. And then the question that I have for you guys, because I have a friend here in town that does it. I used to always worry about the dates on canned food. And I think the dates on canned food are there for a reason. They're there for a reason so that when they expire, you throw them in the trash and you go buy more. So a friend of mine said, man, I've got spaghetti sauce. I've got all kinds of things that the date has passed 10 years ago. And he said, as long as the seal has never broke on the can or the jar or whatever, he goes, I use it up all the time. Of course, I buy new stuff and I always try to use the old stuff at the front of the shelf, put the new stuff in the back. This was roughly about a year or two ago when he told me this. And I just went, holy cow, all the food I used to throw in the trash constantly because it would be past date. So now I don't worry about the dates like I used to. As long as I open the can and it pops or it's got a seal, I don't worry about the dates anymore. How do you guys feel about dates on any kind of canned food or anything that you can yourself? Do you guys really worry about the dates as long as there's still a seal?
Hey, Mike, you see these two things right here and this thing right here? These two things and this thing will tell you if your food's safe.
Yes.
Okay.
He's right.
Your food will smell bad if it's not good. If it's got mold on it, you don't eat it. If the seal's broke, you don't eat it. If it's got rust on it, you don't eat it.
Yep.
And if you smell it and look at it, you can tell if it's going to kill you or not.
I am going to say this.
But I think my point being is I think a lot of people don't realize that. They look at the date and they go, oh, this is a month past expiration, and they throw it in the trash and they go buy new. And we're trained to do that. And I don't want to dive into politics, but we're trained to do that. We truly are. Go ahead, Heather.
Okay, so I'm a lot like you on that. Listen, anybody that's ever had to go to a food bank in their life knows that the canned food that you're getting from a food bank is all expired. Almost all the food that they'll give you is all expired. Those are like fail-safe dates for the stores so they can't get sued for selling stuff. Those expiration dates are about lawsuits. Well, they're not about public concern. BCAT says work in grocery store. Expiration date is the last day can be sold, not last day you can eat. You can eat it, but I'm telling you, even my daughters came to my house a couple of years ago, went through all my cupboards. Anything that was past date, they threw it in the trash. They threw
they threw over 2 big trash
And
sacks full of food
we're
away,
taught
and it was
that.
probably over $300 worth of food because they thought it was no good. And I just don't think people realize that. I really don't.
No, and
Okay,
and
so,
you're right. They
so
don't.
all
But
food is either sealed under vacuum or it's pasteurized and sealed under vacuum. So all you have to do is make sure that air doesn't get in there, and that's gonna last indefinitely.
all right, so I'm going to say there's 3 exceptions to that: peas, carrots, and sometimes potatoes. Always check those cans if they're out of expiration. Peas, especially.
Why-
Peas are the first
Why,
vegetable
why is that,
that'll
Heather?
go bad after expiration.
why,
Well,
why is
they
that,
don't-
Heather?
They don't smell bad, but they'll get like this foggy, like they'll almost start looking like pea soup, right? But when you cook with them, they give you
Kind of like peas.
a nausea effect similar to freeze dried, or I'm sorry, what's the like when
Freezer
you get
burn?
freezer burn? Yes, thank
Freezer
you.
burn?
So you do. There are some things you should be careful with, and just like Hawkeye was saying, your
Smell.
eyes, your nose, those are all going to be your key things. But like,
Yeah.
just realize that if you're pulling out peas and they're looking like pea soup, like you maybe shouldn't eat those, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Unless you're
Yeah.
starving, because you're going to get nauseous. It's going to give you a freezer burn effect. You can still eat it. It's not going to give you any nutritional value whatsoever, and your body is not going to get happy with you. So
But
think about that in that situation. Another really valid point is a lot of these people have canned foods. What happens when your can opener breaks? Do you know the alternative way to open that can? Do you
Yeah,
have
my
backup
knife.
materials?
Yeah, my knife cuts through a can really well.
I got a
Okay.
can opener on my little key ring.
Yeah.
Now
what
I'm
is that
gonna
called?
I'm gonna
That's a
share
P-
this.
That's a P. What do they call that, Hawk? Because I used to carry one too, a P81 or something like that.
I think you're close.
We just
Key
call it a
something.
can. We just call it a can key.
Yeah, that's what my dad called it.
P38. A P38. Thank you for that. A P57. I don't know. Maybe they're just making numbers up to see if I'll say it. I know
Okay.
that we used to call it a P something.
So you got your can. A lot of them have the pull tops. Most preppers don't worry about what the top looks like. But for people who are living in a place that don't have an ulterior way to open this can in said event, right? I'm going to give you a little clue. You're going to take the top of the can where the lid is sealed to this, and you take this can and rub it back and forth on some concrete and break
Yeah.
the seal. All you got to do is break the seal. You don't want shavings in your food. You just got to crack that seal, and then you can pry it open with a stick or something. But a lot of people don't know that you can do it that way.
That's the old.
But that
You can
You
that's
also
just
use
taught
okay.
me something. You just taught me
People
something
need.
new.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
file,
because it's
File?
rolled. Yeah, it's rolled
Yeah, or-
over.
yeah.
So it's actually like a, so once you
Here.
get that broken, then it kind of just pulls right off.
So
Have you
you
ever
can
seen
see.
those? What's those called? Those reverse
Yeah, they're
can
sealed.
lid openers. You ever
Yeah,
seen them?
Yeah,
And they
I
unpeel
have
the
that
lid.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what those.
and another
Same
thing,
idea.
if you were living in a situation like that, this can itself without food in it is going to be invaluable because you can cook in this, you can boil water in this, you can make bread in this,
Drink out of it.
you
It's a
can
cup.
you can drink out of it,
You can
You
eat
can
out
start
of it.
a fire in it.
Everything
you
exactly.
can
you
start
can
a
start-
fire in it.
You can
Cut
start
You can
a
use it
fire
for
in
water
holes in the
filter.
bottom of it. Cut holes in the bottom of it. Stick your wood in there. It naturally drafts up through the bottom of that can.
Yep.
That's the fastest fire starter on the planet.
Not only that, but you can also, if you're good at it, you can put a pan or something above that and cook
Yes.
off of that can. You really could
Yes.
in
Make it out of
a
it,
situation. There's so
And-
many
and-
things that you can do with that can. I've smashed them flat and used them for a plate. I mean, there's those cans come in.
You- and this is the thing.
That's a
That's
good
the
idea.
thing, Mike. That's the thing is people would look at this, and if it was an empty can, and say that your house burned down or you just got hit with a massive storm and you've lost everything, right? They're going to consider this a piece of junk. When you inventory what you have left, go to the creek or the river or the nearest source of water and wash this sucker out, because this could be a valuable tool for you or a valuable trading implement if there was a widespread disaster. People are going to need things, and a lot of people aren't going to have the skills.
I've cut with those cans before. So if you smash the can flat, it has a sharp edge on it. I've cut steak with it. Listen, in my teenage years, when I used to go to the woods and we'd just take a couple of cans of beans and a case of beer, you'd get in a survival situation.
Yes.
Because you drink all the beer, and then you'd have
get
nothing.
The cap off.
And then you'd have nothing to eat. We already ate the can of beans. We had our fishing poles, so I'd smash that can flat. I'd put my fish on it. I'd cut with it. Those cans were invaluable to us when we were teenagers up in the woods. I'm telling you, I've done a lot.
And
you
got to get creative. You're right, Mike. And that I think might be something that doesn't get talked about a lot. But like, if you were in that situation, the creativity that you have is going to become invaluable. You need to start thinking outside of the parameters of the things you've been taught and utilize everything that comes your way.
Okay, so here's something I did in my youth. I haven't done it in a few years, but every year we would go out deer hunting, and we would do it in the middle of the friggin' coldest part of the winter. And me and a buddy would camp 2 nights, and we would see if we could during our hunt, and we would see if we could survive those 2 nights with nothing but what we brought with us. And it was a blast. You'd learn how to stay warm in your truck. You learn how to stay warm in a little camper bag, in a tent. You learn how to keep warm. That's the biggest thing Mike's in Idaho. I'm in Iowa. We're colder than shit. The biggest part of our prepping is just understanding what it's going to take to stay warm if I don't have a furnace going,
Yep.
And it all revolves. Goes right back to here. Your prepping starts here. How do I survive if it's cold? So I know that I can backheat everything. I know that my gas fireplace will run even if I don't have electricity. And I've got it wired right into my furnace, so I can heat my house with I can't keep it warm. It's going to be 55.
Well, you can if you blow off rooms and condense everybody into one room. You sure can.
That's what I do, Heather.
But that's another.
We do that, but you also got to keep all your pipes. You all got to keep all your pipe areas warm. Because the last thing you want to do when you're freezing cold is have pipes break.
Yeah. I have been in not a major survival situation, but I have been in a survival situation that you speak of where you're in your vehicle and you've got to learn to ration your fuel. You can't just let your vehicle run, for 24 hours straight with the heater on. You might have to get uncomfortable in that situation where you turn the vehicle off and you let it cool off in there before you kick the motor back on and the heat, because you got to ration your fuel. And then after that situation, I actually I started putting a blanket behind the seat of my truck and I just keep it there. That way, if I'm broke down in the woods or whatever, especially this time of year, hypothermia will set in pretty quick. You can last a long time inside of a vehicle with just a blanket. And then that way you ration your fuel for night and you're not, yeah, absolutely. It's just, you really got to think about those things when you get in those situations, because one of the trips I made a few years ago, the ball joint broke on the driver's side front tire and my tire came off my truck. And I was stuck on a mountaintop in October. It was fall. It was cold. It rained a lot, so the fire did not the fire didn't burn so well. And when the tire came off, it broke some hoses on my truck. And so I couldn't run the motor because of the brake line and stuff. It would have just ruined the truck. So I was stuck on a mountain. I didn't have cell phone service. My truck was broke down and I couldn't run the motor. And that to me, that's a survival situation. What do you do? How do you get off the mountain? It was 8, 9 o'clock at night. There was no traffic. That's a situation. And then I've told the story before. I was in the middle of two wolf packs in the middle of the woods. So that was a survival situation for me. And I really had to think and use my head on how am I going to get out of this situation, because I couldn't just crawl up in the truck and stay warm for the night and wait for somebody to show up. We had to get off that mountain. We were in a bad situation. Go ahead, Heather.
You make a very valid point about that, Mike. And I know a lot of people have little go bags in their car or whatever. And I mean, I've told you guys before that I used to deliver newspapers. So where I'm at, there's not a lot of signal. And the routes that I always had, they always gave me routes that had 0 signal. You couldn't get in touch with anybody. So many nights you're out there and it's below 0, double digits below or what have you. You're picking up horseshoe nails. You're stranded on the side of the road. So I always had rules about keeping a hat, a blanket, and extra socks in the car. Even when I was younger, I remember my mom doing that. I never understood it. But then when I started doing newspaper delivery and getting stuck out in like negative 14 degree weather with wind chills higher than that, it really brought that to light, because there were many times where my go bag saved me. It saved me from getting an infection, changing the tire, and I got caught by the bar and it ripped my leg up good. So I had a little mini medical kit. I was able to take care of that. I had a lap blanket, a Lapgan that I kept, and I had a hat to keep the heat in my head. And then the socks, of course, are in case you get wet, but I just used them as mittens several times, So it's what you can do, multiple use, but knowing that if you live in a 4-season climate and you're going to be out in the wintertime, make sure there's a hat in your car, a blanket in your car, an extra pair of socks. Because if you're out in that and you're not wearing the right foot gear for that kind of weather and your feet get wet, that's just as dangerous, So have an extra pair of socks. I know everybody laughs about that, but try to have an extra pair of wool socks, because wool actually keep you warmer or even wet than any other material.
Correct.
So,
cotton is the worst. Cotton is the worst. You can have
Mike,
wool, that's better.
Mike, you're an electrician, so one of the things that kills me about a lot of these prepping channels is they'll come up and they'll say, yeah, you need to get a ham radio, this is going to be the most important thing in your life. But you know what? It doesn't do anything for you if you don't know how to use it. And if you don't get a license, you can't use it. So get your friggin' license.
Yep, I have too.
Don't set up here and tell me that this is the most important thing on the planet and I don't have a license. What the hell is that all about? I went out and got my license, and now I keep one of these in my truck. So if my cell phone goes down, I can get 50 miles with this sucker.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just,
you guys want to know a trick? If you're out in the woods, I saw this on a video. This is not my idea. I can't take credit for it, but I thought it was genius. So there's a gentleman that went out in the woods, way up in the mountaintops, was being, I don't know, adventurous, let's just call it. And he ended up getting stuck in about 4 feet of snow. No, he didn't tell anybody where he was going, which is not a great idea. I went on that hike yesterday, and I told my dad exactly the route I was taking. I told him about how many miles off the main road I was going, because it was about 9 miles off the highway. I said, Dad, I'm going to be up this road, 9 miles. You'll see the truck. And my dad knows if I wasn't back by, a certain time, he was going to come looking for me. But anyway, so this guy goes up, he gets stuck in 4 feet of snow. Nobody knows where he's at. His truck runs out of fuel, so he has no heat source now, right? So this was genius. He took his knife. He had seat covers on his 2 seats. I think it was in like a older Ford Bronco, like an 80s Ford Bronco. He had seat covers on there. He took his knife. He took the seat covers off. He cut the seats up, the 2 front seats up, because of the foam. And he took the seat cover cords that he tightened the seat covers with, and he used those cords and wrapped those around his feet and made his own snowshoes to walk out of the situation. And, I don't think people realize that if you're in a life or death situation, I think the biggest thing is stay put for as long as you can. If people know where you're at, they'll come find you. So to just wander off in the woods immediately, I don't think is the right answer. I think try to stay where you're at. Try to use what you have for resources to stay there as long as you can, because you never know. You might be able to stay there for a week, and within a week they might be able to find you. But if you get in that situation where you have no other option but to walk out, you may have to tear your vehicle apart or whatever you have to make what you need to get the hell out of there. I thought it was genius that this guy used his seats and wrapped them to his feet to walk out of the snow, to keep him up on top of the snow, because that's the worst thing you can do in a snow situation is try to walk out when the snow is up to your kneecaps or deeper. You're going to get dehydrated. You're going to get exhausted. You're going to cramp up. You're going to get wet. You're going to get hypothermia if you don't have the right clothing. You won't even make it 600 yards from that vehicle before you're done. You're done. So just things to think about in a survival situation.
With 4 feet of snow, another thing, we don't really teach Raina, but we let her learn on her own a lot of that stuff. But like in the wintertime, when we have any amount of snow, we pile it real big, and then she digs out a dome.
Yep. Snow
and
cave.
she'll dig her and her cousin out a little igloo in that. Snow's a great insulator.
It
and
is.
then they can sit in there. They sit in there for hours talking and playing and having a great time. But at the same time, she's learning very valuable skills. So another thing that you could do is if you have a deep enough snow, pile it up against a tree and get you a little dugout and hold it out, unless you're close enough that you can walk.
Heather made a good point earlier too, and this is kind of along the lines of hunting and fishing, but when the worst thing that can happen to you in cold is to get wet.
Yes.
Okay. So the best thing you can do is carry extra socks, carry yourself a blanket, make sure you know how to dry out your clothes, your hat, you lose 90% of your heat out of your head. Don't think that hat looks stupid on you, because it's going to save your life. I wear toques all the time, and guys say, "Oh, it looks like shit on you." I don't give a damn.
It's not a fashion show.
Warm.
This is life, right?
You know what else? You know what else in a survival situation that comes in? It's a great tool. It's inexpensive. It's lightweight. You can put it in your pack. You can throw it behind the seat of your truck. Whatever. A tarp. You can use a tarp for so many different things. You can build a tent out of it. You can drag stuff with it. You can use a tarp. It
You
keeps
can
you
distill
dry.
water.
Oh yeah, plastic is another good one where you can distill water with plastic and sunlight, with dew and when the plastic sweats and you put a little rock in there into a can, like we talked about, a can, you collect it. But a tarp to me is an invaluable object that you should always have behind, like I said, behind the seat of your truck or in your pack.
And
they're
cheap.
Yeah, they're not that expensive.
It doesn't.
Somebody's
have to
always
be
running the deal on them.
It doesn't have to be a 60 by 60 tarp. Doesn't have to be
No,
this big
exactly.
giant thing.
Could be a 4
you know
by
what?
4 or a
I
4
see
by
Can
5.
I-
money.
Get yourself a
I
6 by
see
9
money.
star.
Can I make
I
a
see
really good
money.
point
Go
real
ahead.
quick about tarps? Yeah, a lot of people have those really heavy duck canvas tarps. Okay. And those are excellent if you got the money to put into one of those, but oil it, waterproof it with
Oh, yeah.
oil,
Yeah.
waterproof it. Those are the kind of things that are that the settlers and stuff use for roofing material. They would waterproof their jackets, they would waterproof their tarps,
Mhm.
and they would use them as shelters.
And a lot of people don't realize nowadays, most companies, I don't know, but anyhow, it doesn't really matter. All I do know is learning from my dad, buying tents. If you're going to buy the Ozarks, whatever, they are not waterproof. You have to waterproof them before you take them into the woods. And this is just for your viewers to understand too. If you go out and buy a tent, make sure you get a couple cans of Camp Dry or a tent sealer, pop it up, make sure you, on a nice day, and get it waterproof before you ever go camping, because it's over once it starts raining. Everything's
And
wet
Don't,
inside your
and
tent.
don't touch
You
the
know-
sides.
Don't touch it.
Don't touch the sides in a rain.
Don't
And
touch
yes,
it.
and don't
Don't
touch the
touch it.
sides afterwards.
Don't
That's right.
touch it.
And
Just
you know,
don't
Mike,
touch
when
it.
you were mentioned the vehicle survival stuff, right? If you know how to get some of that oil onto a rag, you've got yourself a fire, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you know how to utilize your vehicle for everything that it's
you
got.
you may have to cannibalize your vehicle to survive. You know, I don't care if it's a $500 vehicle. I don't care if it's an $80,000 vehicle. If you're in a life or death situation,
It's
that
worth it.
vehicle may save your life. Good morning, Monty. How are you, brother?
Good
There,
morning.
Monty?
Yeah.
More
Yeah,
money.
I'd much rather have it save my life than be my coffin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You hear
What's
me?
on your mind, Monty? Yep. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say happy birthday. I was gonna sing it to you, but
Oh boy.
Oh.
Let's not do the singing.
hey,
Thank you, brother.
did you get
That's
that?
right. I forgot about that.
No
Yeah,
problem.
Happy birthday.
So are you retirement age now?
I'm getting there. Getting there. Not quite there.
I couldn't remember if you're a year older than me or not.
I turned 47 today.
47.
Yeah.
Happy
that's
birthday.
a lot.
Well, I
In-
am
in
older than
two-
you by a couple days.
Just a couple
In
days.
2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I turn a year younger than you.
47.
Nice.
My
I remember
daughter
I
turned
remember when I was
41 yesterday.
46.
You're older than him?
I remember when I was 46.
Yeah, like yesterday.
It's about the only year I remember.
Did you happen to get that video of a guy feeding a deer?
I did, and I watched it. And I'm like, what is this? It was
Crazy.
weird. The buck was just sitting there, and he was feeding it crackers.
Yeah. I seen that. I was like, oh, Liberty's got to have that.
Yeah, I'll show it real quick. Let me unplug these. I'll pull it up real quick. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can I
Yeah.
hear you guys? I can't hear. Okay, let me
Yes.
refresh this real quick. Okay. All right, let's share screen. This is kind of hilarious. You like this, Hawk?
That's great.
Oh,
He's
it
sleeping.
doesn't stop
I was
there.
speaking of- He's sleep eating.
Is it a wild deer?
I have no idea what's going on.
I'm not thinking it is.
No.
He's got a pretty good sized rack on him.
Yeah, he does. He's beautiful.
That's it. I just Ani sent that to me, and I'm like, what is going on with this buck? He's just sitting there eating crackers. It was pretty funny. Thanks for sharing that with us, Monty.
No problem.
When I was a kid, my aunt and uncle, my uncle was he loved deer hunting, and somehow a fawn had gotten into their yard. The mama had been killed by a driver on the road, and my aunt was real soft-hearted, and she started feeding it. Well, they ended up starting to let it in the house, and by the time it was a full-grown buck, it was in there laying on the couch, taking up the whole dang house. But its rat got big enough that it couldn't make it through the door no more, and at that point, my uncle decided that it would be good meat for the freezer. So
yeah, sometimes your pets will become your freezer meat. Chickens, hogs, sheep, cattle, dogs, cats, horses, whatever you got, I guess.
Rabbits.
yeah,
No,
no, that's
horses
another
used to
thing.
be
Okay,
quite
I'm
a
glad
bit.
you brought that up. Hey, a lot of people who think they're paired because they have meat rabbits, they don't realize that you can starve to death eating rabbits. I don't know if you guys know about that, but there are
Never
certain
heard that.
proteins.
Go ahead and explain.
Yeah, there are certain proteins missing from a rabbit that you need to get from other places, certain fats that your body needs. And there have been cases literally of people starving to death eating rabbits. They had plenty of rabbit. They just didn't they didn't add anything else to their diet.
I
Right?
tell you what, rabbits are one of the easiest animals to cut up and defer.
Yeah, you can
Right,
actually just
I know.
pull the fur
You
right
just
off, damn near.
Pull the fur right off. Yeah.
But you can't
With
think
the
that,
hide.
of that being a solo food source. You have to add to that. You have to forage with it or add fats to it or something.
Sure.
You can actually
that
skin
makes
one of
sense.
those out in just a couple minutes. Like
Hey,
literally.
Oh, God,
B
yeah.
Cat. I don't think B Cat liked my my comment about the dogs. That was just a joke. But with that being said, I mean, in a survival situation, who knows what you'd have to do? Matt, Tactical Tonto, when he was in the military, he actually had dog in another country and didn't know he was having it until after he ate it, which is I couldn't even imagine eating a dog for any reason other than absolute survival. But he did partake in eating a dog and did not know it and wasn't aware of it. And I felt sorry for him when he was telling me that story. But yeah, I couldn't do it.
I know. In Florida, when I lived in Florida, they actually had to make a law that they were not allowed to use cat and dog meat in the Chinese restaurants. I didn't eat Chinese for like decades after that because the fact that you had to make a law was just like, I said that for a reason though. I said that because a lot of people are eating out in these restaurants and they don't even know what they're eating. They are believing whatever they're told that it is.
Well,
And a lot of this stuff is just processed foods.
There's a couple of places where I know that there are Chinese restaurants close, and any roadkill cats or dogs on the side of the road disappeared real quick.
I mean,
Needless to
if you think about it, right, West Virginia's got that law now where you can pick up roadkill for dinner. I wouldn't personally do that. That wouldn't be my first choice. But in a survival situation, I have recipes for raccoon, for possum, for squirrel, for chipmunk. I have recipes on how to cook those meats where they're not going to be disgusting.
What about mice?
Oh my God, I eat squirrel all the time. Squirrel's a real dark meat. I love it.
I'm not a dark meat fan, but because it's so high in iron, but it is good for you, unless you already have too much iron in your system. I'm not a meat fan, so I don't really care for the gamey, but I have recipes for for cooking that. I found an old hillbilly cookbook in a thrift store for 10 cents. And it has all those recipes in it.
I'll tell you, if you've
And I
got,
thought, in
it's
case-
just like with, it's like with fish. If you take a lemon and put it in your skillet, it'll take some of that game taste away.
Yep.
It's just weird how that happens.
It's
You
the
know,
acid. It's
same way
the
with
acids
fish.
in the lemon. It's the
It's
acid.
the
the
acid,
citrus.
yeah.
But like, those are things that people don't think about. They think, oh, I can hunt. I know how to, I'll go ahead and I'll just be able to do this and this and this. And then when that gets on your plate, if you're not already starving, right, are you going to eat it? Because we live in a society where we don't eat what we don't like, right? Most of us. We've come to that point where if we don't like it, it doesn't taste good, we're not going to eat it. We'll go find something else. So that's another one of those things that we have to practice in order to be mentally prepared to do this thing, right? I always make the joke because my cat hunts chipmunks so much that in that situation, I just let her bring dinner because she brings me like 3 chipmunks a day. I'm sure I could feed the entire family on that.
Wow.
Pop it in with some
I don't
rice and
know.
beans.
You must have some big chipmunks there, because in Idaho they're about 2 bites and that's about it here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have pretty good sized grass rats. They're about 6-7 inches. I don't know. Our chipmunks can get pretty big here, but
Ours are pretty big.
we don't hunt in our immediate area because we want to keep the wildlife in our immediate area, so that if we had to hunt, we would have plentiful amount of hunting. So, I think it's been about 2 years since we've even taken a deer off the property, just because we want to keep those coming in. And then we do a compost pile, but a lot of times if I have vegetables that are starting to go bad but aren't completely bad, I throw them down the hill so the deer can feed off of them all winter long. And we do that on purpose. So those are things to keep in mind too. If you've got an area where you can put out food scraps to keep wildlife coming in, it's not a bad idea to do. I wouldn't leave your trash out there, and I wouldn't put meat scraps out there. But
That
If you
depends
got-
on what kind of wildlife. You definitely don't want bears.
well, that's
coming
true
in.
because you guys have a lot bigger, badder things than we do.
So
Yeah,
I
you guys
was-
have bigger, badder things than we do. You're right. We don't have bears. We don't have. We're only just now seeing mountain lions and coyotes and stuff back in our area. So
Bobcats.
I was
Um,
playing with Noah yesterday on our hike. You guys will get a kick out of this. So I was playing with Noah a little bit on the hike yesterday. We hiked probably about a mile up the trail and then turned around and came back. And I had bought, both of us, I drove 6 miles out of my way to go buy jerky from this little store where they produce it here, because it's
That's
the best.
awesome.
It's the best jerky I've ever ate. So I bought him a bag. I got him one and me one. I saved it for the next day because I knew I was going on this hike, and of course Noah ate the whole bag that night. And I said, "Man, you better be prepared for the jerky shits, because you're gonna get them." Anyway, so we go on this hike. We start walking up the trail. We get to the spot where I decided I'm gonna turn around and head back. So I open up my bag of jerky and I start chewing on it. And of course he's eyeballing me, right? He's wanting some. So I share with him, and we're coming down off the trail, and I'm showing him elderberries. The elderberries, it's already too late, but in a survival situation, you can get a little bit from them. So I picked a branch for him and gave him some elderberries, and he was chewing on elderberries and the jerkies. We're coming down off the hill, and I said, "You know what they call those berries, right?" And he goes, "No." "What do you call them, Dad?" I told him it was elderberries, but I said there's a nickname for them. I said they're called the berries. And he's like, "What?" And I go, "Well, yeah, the bears, they love those elderberries, man. You can find the bears around the berries, right?" So he was kind of like on high alert, and he goes, "Well, maybe I should just throw them down then." I go, "No, you can finish them if you want." And so we were down off the trail, and I said, "You know what else the bears like?" And he goes, "What?" I go, "The smell of jerky." And he just froze.
Oh,
And so
sorry.
he put it in his mouth and he started chewing on it real quick. And he goes, "Well, Dad, you better put your jerky away. And I said, well, I'm done with mine. I said, but the problem is I was trying to teach him to be quiet because he's 9-year-old kid. He likes to just talk. And I said, man, if I take you hunting, we're never going to see anything because you can't be quiet. So me being me, I said, you know what else the bears can smell besides the jerky? And he goes, what, Dad? And I go, the jerky on your breath. So every time you talk, jerky smell is coming out. And I said, the bears are going to be right on top of us. So that kept him quiet till we got to the truck.
That's great.
I just playing around with him. He wasn't too scared, but he definitely, I could tell that it kind of raised the hair on the back of his neck, so to speak. He was like, well, Dad, we better get back to the truck. I said, we're good, man. All I got to do is be able to outrun you. I'll be all right.
That's when you get down in there and you go, shh, did you hear that?
I didn't want to scare him so bad he'd never go to the woods with me again.
Well, no, but you want him to learn how to listen in the woods too, right? You want him to have awareness.
Oh, he was listening. He was on high alert.
I have a big golden retriever, and I let her out in the front yard to go to the bathroom on a big chain or on a big cable. And so this was 2 nights ago. She was acting just silly. I could see her, and she was kind of laying on her back, and she was whining, and she was looking out into the street, and then she was barking. So I sat there and watched her for a little bit, and then I looked out, and there's about a 60-pound coyote that was in our street just looking at her. And my dog wanted to go play with her.
Oh, well, yeah.
All of a sudden I saw that, and I looked outside, and I started walking out into the street, and I sat and took a video of this friggin' coyote walking up my street. And now I see that coyote almost every night coming in my yard. It's just wild as hell.
I don't know. Maybe you guys know if wolves do this, but I know coyotes do. But because it was always a concern for us because we have a local pack of coyotes, but they'll use the female to lure in dogs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do wolves do that too?
Yep. Absolutely. Especially if they're in heat and you got a male
they'll
dog.
use the female.
That's not good for your dog if he wants to go play because he may not come back. He may not come back. But that's a real thing. Monty, you're being awful quiet. He must have fell asleep. He went back to bed.
No.
So Mike,
I'm right here.
When you were out on your hike, did you see any wildlife?
Lots of good tracks. I could tell that's why the hunters were up there because there was elk tracks, elk crap, deer. I thought I saw a bald eagle, but it wasn't. It was just an old tree snag, and it looked like the top of a bald eagle head. And I got closer, it wasn't. But that's about all the sign that I saw of any wildlife. I didn't see anything else. I think I saw a hawk. That was about it. I think the hunters had everything chased out of there.
So, we was talking about deer earlier, and a few years ago there was a video on Messenger, Facebook Messenger, and along this little, maybe like a trail like we've seen on Craig's videos, or whatnot. There was an old couch sitting right there alongside that little trail, and the guy come up there. He was videotaping them. There was 2 fawns just sitting perfectly right up on the couch. I was like,
hey, they like to relax too.
Yeah.
Put their feet up.
Yeah, they was just sitting there perfectly curled up. Is my mic real loud?
No, you're fine, Bonnie. You're fine.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for everybody to.
Didn't want to blast anyone's ears.
So, Mike, you want to have a discussion about hunting licenses at all?
Not today, but yeah, absolutely. Today is not the day for me. My mind's somewhere else already. I'm planning on heading south here later this afternoon. I'm gonna go down to some friends' house for dinner, and they have a Halloween party every year. I've been friends with them for 20 years. I've never been to this Halloween party that they do because I'm always hunting or something else. So I figured I'd go down tonight, go check it out. A lot of people know her. It's Mandy. She's been with us for quite a while. The what did she go by? The Awakened Patriot. So I'm going to go down and hang out with her and her husband and my friend Lisa and her husband. And I don't know. It's usually a shop full of people. Half of them I probably know. The other half I won't know. But that's kind of where my mind is right now. I just want to kind of start the day and get going. And this is
You're just ready to go bob for apples.
You going in costume?
You're looking at it.
He's already got it on.
I figure I didn't need to put a costume on. I'm scary enough as it is. So I'm good at scaring kids. I'm good at scaring adults too. Sometimes if I jump out from behind a wall or something, I get them good. So I'm just gonna go as LW. That's all I need to do.
He's going as Liberty Warrior, American Patriot.
You totally need that helmet. Really. You know, the badge, you that should be a 3D helmet for you. Seriously.
There you go. Yeah, Liz, I will tell Mandy hello for you. For you too, Deanna. I know that Deanna met Mandy. Liz met Mandy on the 4th of July. Yeah, take my mini guitar. That's almost a good idea if I wanted to embarrass myself.
So where's Craig and Brock?
Craig's uncle was stuck on the property, and so he was down there trying to get him pulled out. Brock, I have no idea. He's totally MIA. He might be swinging from a tree right now. Maybe he actually harvested something, and so he may be in the middle of packing it out. I don't know. I'm sure I'll talk to him sometime soon.
You know, we always see
Mike-
Craig wearing a wig and stuff. I wonder if he ever wears that in front of his uncle.
I don't know. It's a good question.
Just saying.
Hey, Mike, I was always curious. I got a lot of buddies that go out west, go elk hunting, and never seen any videos or any of their well, I mean, I've seen the elk that they've taken, but have you ever had to pack an elk out of the mountains?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's that like? Can you do it by hand? Or do you have to quarter it or what?
Yeah, we quarter it. A lot of us will carry basically just a pack frame. Some guys will find a pack big enough where you can throw the quarter inside the pack itself, but a lot of guys will quarter it right there. We'll put the fly net on it and then just strap it to your backpack, pack it out. I've been fortunate enough a couple of times. The big bull that I took down in 2000 with the help of my little brother. We had my dad's 4-wheeler. I was able to just drive right down to it. We cut it in half. I put the first half on the front of the 4-wheeler and the rear on the back. And I went up the hill about 150 yards. I had my truck parked next to a bank, and I just rode the 4-wheeler right in the back of my truck and headed to town. Now that does not happen on an everyday basis, especially for me personally. That was probably the easiest pack out I've ever had for any animal. A lot of times with the deer and stuff, it's always a pretty good pack. And these mountains around here are pretty steep, so it's, you get your exercise. Just that hike alone, I got bad knees, and just that hike alone, going up doesn't bother me. It's always the coming down for some reason. My knees will start locking up on me really bad. So I usually carry some knee braces with me to keep, I don't know, it's like the cartilage there, something's going on with my knees. But I've been stuck on a mountain before coming down, not going up, but coming down.
I got
It's
bad
just
knees
old age.
too. And my father-in-law told me that when your knees start locking up like that, when you're walking downhill, walk backwards. And it worked. I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
I had to sit on my ass and slide down off the mountain because my knees would not work. I mean, my brother was really concerned. He thought he was going to have to call Life Flight because he didn't know what was going on. I mean, I wasn't having a heart. Hell, I was only in my 30s. I wasn't having a heart attack or anything. My knees just completely locked up on me after all the years of playing football and basketball, and I just they wouldn't work. And yesterday, I could kind of start feeling it. About the time I got to the bottom of the hill, they were starting to kind of mess with me. So I got to go find my knee braces and make sure I have them with me.
So
we always
how
do a
much,
side step.
how much of your elk how much of your kills do you process yourself, or do you send them off to process?
100% myself.
You do 100%. Yeah, that's good.
100%
That's
myself.
good.
Yep. I've actually got pretty good at cutting deer and elk up. Pretty quick at it because I've done it so many times. But usually we do it at my parents' house. Dad usually starts. He'll kind of start cutting the meat up, and then I'll take it and cut it again and make it into more specific cuts. And then it goes over to Mom on the table, and she wraps it all up in the plastic and then the freezer wrap, and then she marks it and it goes in the freezer. So we typically work as a family doing it, and it really doesn't take too long to do it. It goes pretty quick.
My neighbor had a problem with me one year. I was cutting up a deer, and my dog was there, a big golden retriever, and I let my dog have the rear hind leg of one of my deer after I had cut all the meat off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And she was running around the backyard with this freaking deer leg just popping all over. And my neighbor came over and said, "You got something going on here?" It says, "Look, did something get killed in your backyard? Your dog's running around." And I said, "No." I said, "That's just a big old bone that she's getting, big old leg." But I process all my deer meat, and then I wrap everything in freezer paper, and then we've got several butcher shops around here, and I'll take about 30 to 60 pounds and go have it processed as salami.
Yep. Yeah, I have somebody else process the hamburger for me. We used to have a store here in town. You just take your meat into them, your hamburger cuts, and then they would
Do they mix it with pork?
Lard. Yeah, they'd mix it with some kind of lard, fat, and I think people don't realize that's what keeps hamburger together. So when you buy that super lean hamburger in the store and you wonder why your hamburger patties won't stay together when you're cooking them, it's because they're so lean. They don't have the fat that holds all that stuff together, which I'm not saying that other way is healthy by any means, but that's what keeps your hamburger together. And
well, I got to
ahead.
say this, Mike. There's a reason that they put that fat content back into the burger when they grind it. And I worked as a meat wrapper for a lot of years, and I was getting ready to go into a meat cutter's apprenticeship when other things happened and my life changed direction. But the reason that we do that is even though they've demonized fats, and yes, it's true, there are fats out there that are bad for you, your body, your brain requires fat to work. Your brain needs fats in your body to be able to process information. It's just how we're made.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And it's so nice to be able to cook with things that you've harvested yourself, because you know where it all came from, and you know how it was processed.
Yeah.
And you know that the grocery store hasn't put the red dye in there to make it look fresher, and you know that you haven't injected it. One of the grocery stores here in Idaho, this is no shit, one of the grocery stores here in Idaho that had a butcher, also had a butcher in it. They got caught injecting the meat with water so that it would weigh more, and so they would get you when you would buy their meat, and a 1 pound steak would be 1 pound and a couple of ounces because it had water injected into
Yep.
it. And, you know, you'd think, oh, that's only a few pennies. Well, it is only a few pennies, but you do that throughout the years and thousands of people buying your meat. You know, that's a lot of money. They made a lot
And
of
that's
money.
going to be a store policy. That's going to be a store policy because I've known quite a few meat cutters in my life. My uncle was a meat cutter. My brother Dan went to school to be a meat cutter. You know, and most of them are very ethical people, and they're about processing the animal the right way. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
A lot of them
do have integrity.
bitch and complain, and they get frustrated because as marketing ploys, they change the names of cuts of the meat over the years. Like, you can't, in our area, you can't find a London broil cut. Well, you can, but it won't be called that. It'll be called something else because an entire generation learned how to cook a London broil cut. But then they took it away. They named it something else and like, ooh, here's a new cut of meat. Well, guess what? Cows haven't really evolved that much. So, you know, if you are a conscientious meat buyer, though, and you're not processing your own food, call the butcher out of the back. Ask to talk to a meat cutter because those guys are going to tell you the truth about it most of the time. They're going to tell you, hey, this is the cut you want for this. Sure, we can process up some fat for you, and or we'll cut it, and then, you know, you take it home, you cook it this long. They'll tell you. They're very, very helpful people if you ask them, because nobody asks the butcher anything anymore except to deliver what they want, you know?
Well, you know, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier too. You know, my grandmother on the farm, every time she cooked a meal, took lard out of a big can that she had, and that went straight in before she started cooking. We're going back now. Let's go back to that tin can that we're saving. Every time you cook bacon, put the renderings into that tin can. Every time you cook something, put that fat into that tin can, and now you got something to cook with, and that'll last forever.
Yep.
And I'm going to say this because people throw those out, and when they start to smell bad, and they go, "Oh, it went rancid. The fat went rancid." All you need to do is pop that back on the stove and clarify it, and you can use and filter it, and you'll be able to use it. It only went rancid because you left meat bits in there.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yep.
Great.
And as
point.
long as you extract them out.
Yep.
Yep. As long as you extract them out.
That's the way our grandparents did it.
Yep.
Yeah, my
They didn't
grandma.
want anything to waste.
My grandma used to cook just like Hawkeye said. She used to have lard. She used a lot of lard. And before she did anything, she cooked most everything with either a cast iron or the tin pans that Hawk's talking about. And she'd grease that tin pan before she made her biscuits. And she'd drop a big old spoonful of lard into this cast iron skillet. And I don't know. It just I think that was just a better time. Really. Now we have all this stuff that they throw at us constantly. Remember when
we became
you can still buy lard.
Yeah.
You know,
remember when eggs were bad for you? Remember when eggs were bad for you?
Yeah,
Remember when eggs were so bad?
How about whole milk? Whole milk was bad for you. You know,
everything is bad for you.
They've done that to us, and we're old enough to remember, but these new generations are going, "Oh, you can't eat that. That's so bad for you." And we're like, "Wait a minute, we've already been through this like 5 times in our lifetime alone." Right? It was so super healthy, and now it's like so bad. And then it's got milk, you know, and so it's all just marketing ploy. It's all to drive the markets. And you know, our ancestors didn't normally die from anything but old age unless there was a war going on, right? They didn't have cancers and tumors and things like that as much as we have nowadays because we're eating processed foods and we're doing all that. So there's something to be said about going back to source,
good old fermented beer.
Going right back to the source, hunting your own food. You can buy lard right off the shelf of the grocery store.
Oh yeah.
Personally,
Cheaper than
I
that.
like to go to the butcher, and here's what we do: is we
Yep.
go to the butcher and we buy tallow
And we
because
rendered
Yep.
tallow
Yep.
is lard waiting to happen. All right, but it
Yep.
doesn't cost as much because it's not all the way rendered down.
I think it was 19 cents a pound the last time we got it.
19 cents a pound.
And you paid $5 or $6 for what, a tub of lard
Yeah,
in this.
yeah.
You know, it's ridiculous.
So, no, if you have knowledge of how these things are done or how they're processed, you can save yourself a ton of money and a ton of time.
and you get a snack out of it in the end.
Yeah, you get the
The crunchies.
Yeah, the
the
little
crunchies from the tallow.
And you
I'm
can,
gonna have
put
to-
a little bit. You can put a little bit in a bag and hang it outside on your door, and the birds love it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, they do.
I have to disagree with you a little bit, Heather. I have to disagree when
Okay.
you said that. When you said people lived longer back in the day unless there was a war, I have to disagree with that. And I'm gonna look at it through a different lens. And I know people like Tammy will disagree with me because she's into health and fitness. So here's a lens for you, and this might gross some people out, which is fine. The life expectancy back in the 1800s and the early 1900s was definitely a less than what we have today. So today people live 80, 90 years old, right? This is just my opinion and the lens that I'm looking through. And that's because they ate healthy and they lived a good life and they worked hard. The reason why, and it's only my opinion through my lens, that people live longer today is not just the health aspect that Tammy will argue. I look at it as what you Heather and Hawk brought up at the beginning of the show, which is preserving your food and pickling. And I think people live longer these days because of all the and so think about this. All the preservatives that people are putting into their bodies.
We're pickling ourselves.
You're pickling yourselves and you're preserving yourselves to live longer.
that actually is a very good point.
It is.
But what I was talking about preserving and pickling, I was talking about
I
the
know,
actual
I know.
process of fermentation, which keeps your food alive, which that's how canned foods actually started, with being brined and fermented, right?
Yep.
And now we've
Yep.
changed to all these chemical ones, which
Yeah.
I'm going to have
I'm
to go
just
with
saying-
Tammy on
I'm
that.
just-
Those are terrible.
I'm just saying all the preservatives, all the additives, all the stuff that
Yeah.
people put in their bodies day in and day out. You know, not everybody thinks healthy. Not everybody eats healthy. I mean, a lot of people hit McDonald's every morning on their way to work or on, for lunch, and all those nasty, nasty things that they keep putting in our bodies, their bodies. Could that be something that is contributing to them living longer because they're preserving their bodies at that point?
Well, and think about it too. How do we can't feed 8 billion people on the planet if our food goes bad in a couple weeks, So, I mean, a lot of that preservatives was just for that. It
Yep.
makes our food last longer. It's like the way they farm. You used to have rows big enough in corn that you could almost drive a small little 4x4 through, and now it's hard to walk through the rows because they figured out how to plant more efficiently with the equipment that we have now, and that feeds more people. So so much of this preservatives is just about feeding the number of people that we need to feed. You can imagine if we had half as much food, what would happen? I mean, that would be it'd be a disaster.
Obesity
So-
would be down in America. What?
Yeah, well, that's so true. That is so true. I went to the doctor the other day, and I was borderline diabetic, and they said, and it was diabetes too. So she said, all we got to do is just look at what your diet is. And my wife loves to buy Oriental food, frozen Oriental food. So so I was explaining to her what we were eating, and we own a restaurant too, and it's all fresh food, so I eat a lot from there too. But she said, how much of this Oriental food do you eat? And I said, oh, we probably eat 2 or 3 meals a week. And she said, go back home and look at the amount of salt in one of those meals. And I did, and I just couldn't believe it.
Blows your mind, huh?
It just blows your mind the amount of shit that they put in this food to make it last.
Yeah, like if you think a lot of people go to those run to things and it's like any more stew. 860 milligrams of sodium.
Yeah.
That's more than your body can handle.
That goes back to Mike's point, though, of
eating
from the source. Like, from the source.
So,
but soda, look at salt. Look at salt pork. Salt pork. That's a way to preserve it.
Yep.
So, but back to Heather's point, eat a lot of calories, and don't eat a lot of volume. So
yes,
I mean, that's kind of what it's about. And if you're not active, don't eat a lot of calories.
Exactly.
That's the problem with America. We are probably the leading obesity country in the world because of what we eat, how we eat. Everything's convenient. All the distractions, TV, phones. We sit on our asses all the time. We're not out there like our grandfathers and our grandmothers were, gardening and working and hunting and building things. Exercising. It's just, that's where we're at in America, and it's truly sad. And a lot of these other countries that are not obese, it's because we make fun of them at times and say, oh well, they're a third world country. They're a third world country and they don't have a McDonald's on every block. And guess what? They're not obese. So there's something to be said about a third world country. Who cares if they live a simpler life and they don't have internet and they don't have electricity in every one of their houses? Guess what? They're not obese. They probably live longer than some of us. They're probably healthier than some of us. So I don't know. I think America has really taken technology and knowledge and used it for the good, but I also think we paid a big price for it too.
Yeah. There has to be balance in all things. For life to succeed, there has to be balance.
Yeah.
So in America, a doctor recommends only up to 3 grams of salt a day, right, for Americans. Now check this out. This doctor that I was watching on a video a couple years ago, he was explaining this. He goes, "How is it Japanese men and women who smoke up to 4 packs a day have the intake of 7 to 9 grams of salt, and they still outlive us?"
Because their salt's not chemically processed like ours is.
You're right.
Oh boy.
But they also don't have all the cancer either, because once you bring your body up past 7.4 on the alkaline level, then it kills off a lot of the cancers.
Everything that we eat is processed. That's why getting back to a simpler life and processing it yourself, being self-sufficient, raise your own animals, have your own garden. To me, that's the key to a healthy and successful life and a long life, is when you are in control of you and not relying on the grocery stores and Walmart and everything else to provide for you. We have gotten so used to those conveniences in life that we've some of us have just, honestly, myself included, I've gotten lazy and I just rely on a lot of that stuff. And that's the changes that I'm trying to make in my life right now. I want to be self-sufficient, and I want to take care of me. I don't need anyone to take care of me.
So back in the day, they used to have a lot of salt cured hams and beef and everything else, right? And you don't ever hear them dying from cancer back then, is what I'm getting at.
But at the same time, and here's Monty, you made a great point about the alkalinity, is that we, as a society, used to have that as part of our knowledge base, right? That human beings were supposed to be more alkaline, that animals were more acidic, and that was how we
Balanced it out.
went about our medicine, right? Back when medicine was still all plant based, before it was all chemical based like it is now. But that's how we treated our animals. That's how we treated our bodies. Was if this thing was out of tune or out of whack, it was, you could trace it to something else. And part of that is due to the Eastern medicine system. But now we live in a day and age where a lot of that stuff has been demonized over here in the West, or been thought fuddy-duddy, and we don't anymore because we have all these advanced techniques and things. But what they did when they did that is they erased the knowledge that we are alkaline in our body, which right there is your key to becoming a healthy human being, because you're eating foods and being fed foods that are acidic for a reason. Because a machine only works so long as the cogs are still turning. So if you can't keep selling, like, okay, I'm going to say this, MSG, right? MSG is not good for you. Your body does make a natural amount of it as a chemical process. But when you're taking in monosodium glutamate in every meal, that's not good for your body. It can cause tumors.
My wife gets sick with MSG.
I do
If she
too.
eats too much of it,
MSG and aspartame will both make me violently ill and terrible headaches for weeks. So I have to be very, very cautious of that stuff in my diet.
But
so
one thing you got to remember about your body chemistry is that as a society, we used to be real active, and your body naturally pushes that salt out in sweat, in your urine. It balances that out. It pushes it out. We're not active anymore, so we don't sweat. We don't push all those chemicals out. We don't drink enough water, and because of that, our body is storing that, and it's just not good for us anymore.
Yeah. Exactly. And the amount of toxins that we store in our fat cells naturally, because that's the way the human body operates, that we store these things in our fat cells. So then once we get to a point where we are overweight and we start burning that stuff off, those toxins are then released back into our bodies. And if we're not detoxing our bodies in the proper manner, we can get seriously ill. I mean, you see people all the time that go on these fad diets that get seriously ill when they start losing weight. And a lot of that is from the toxins that are being released that have been stored in their fat cells for so long. And they don't realize it. I mean, that's why a lot of people who did LSD in their youth, if they gain weight and then they lose weight, they start having flashbacks because those chemicals are still stored in their body's fat cells. I mean, it's just amazing. The human machine is amazing, and we have forgotten to learn about how we work properly so that we can heal ourselves properly. And
self-heal instead of all this other stuff that they say we have to heal ourselves. It's just
right.
It's crazy.
I was a pharmacy tech for a little while, and I didn't get too far into my training before I realized I didn't want to be there. But what I learned was invaluable. Every medicine that we have on the market today has originated from a plant. So if you can do some research, you will find the plant and how to use it according to the medicinal properties that you need. Whether it be headache medicine or pain medicine or anti-inflammatory or blood clotting or, whatever. All the medicines that we have been given today that are chemically produced originated by them exploring compounds in plants. So it all was based on nature to start with. And I think that's where we need to get back to, personally.
Absolutely.
Hey, Bella, I seen your comment. Riddle is at 4 Eastern.
Well, folks, I think I'm gonna get off of here and go get my day started and head south. I am gonna get Noah fed. Maybe make some pancakes this morning because that's healthy, and and use
sounds good.
some elderberry syrup that was made for me by a friend.
Oh,
which
get
is
out of
good.
here.
Getting your magnesium.
So I think I'm gonna do that and then get headed south. So thanks for joining me this morning. I appreciate it.
Elderberry
You
syrup
have a
sounds
wonderful
good.
birthday. Don't forget to celebrate yourself.
Yeah.
Take some pictures at the Halloween party, Mike.
There you go. I'll see what I'm going to call in. The show, we're still doing the show tonight, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. So I'll be on the show. We'll see what kind of costumes we got tonight.
Do a
Let's
little
go
live
around.
remote. Yeah.
There we go. Let's do a little final thought. I'll go with you first, Monty, then Heather, and then Hawk. Go ahead, Monty. What's your final thought for today on this beautiful Saturday?
It is pretty beautiful out there. Just a quick reminder, there's Hawk's 48-hour prayer-a-thon starts noon his time,
Noon.
Pacific.
Noon,
And
right?
yep. Pacific
But that's
time.
Pacific time. So
Yep.
that's going to be 1 o'clock. No, 3 o'clock Eastern, right? 3 o'clock Eastern?
Yeah, and 2 o'clock Central and 1 o'clock Mountain.
Okay.
So I'm so excited for November 2nd because that's when my trout season opens. So
Yeah,
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm so ready.
Make
I
sure
wish
all
I
your
had
poles ready to go.
Oh man, yeah. I only have 6 trout poles. You can only have 2 in the water at each time, so I got backups
He's
on
right.
backups.
There you go.
Just get out there and take some nature hikes. Take your kids out fishing with you or hiking with you or anything, and just make memories. Enjoy nature. Mother
Absolutely.
Earth has a way of replenishing one's natural batteries.
Yep, absolutely. Heather, your final thought?
My final thought is keep in mind that it's not just about your supplies or your knowledge, but your mental health is going to be invaluable in any situation that can arise in your life. And my very final thought is don't forget to celebrate yourself. We're all gifts from God. It's not selfish to say thank you for my existence. I feel so blessed that you thought I was worth it.
Absolutely. Hawk, your final thought?
My final thought is the only thing that we don't get extra of is time. So don't let everything that's happening around the earth bother you. Get that stuff out of your head. Take advantage of every minute that you have. Go out in the woods, enjoy the outdoors. You don't get that minute back. And quit worrying about everything that's happening on the outside of your brain. It doesn't matter. So just go out and enjoy it. Enjoy the time. Thank God for the time that you have, because you can prep all your life and you might die tomorrow.
Yep.
So take advantage of it.
Well, I'm gonna give all of you listening right now probably the best final thought out of all of these people. Here it is. When in the woods, make sure you do not have jerky on your breath. That's my final thought. So I hope you guys all have a great Saturday. We'll see you tonight at 8 Eastern, 7 Central over on LWN Channel 2. So love you guys. Thanks for sharing Saturday with me and getting my day started. Thanks for sharing my birthday with me. I love you all. Have a great day.
Happy birthday,
Talk to
Mike.
you soon.
Happy birthday, Mike.
All right. See you.